Alice in Wonderland. Yep, you know the book. Let's talk about it on a deeper level. Good morning, everybody. Positive energy sent to everybody out there. Thank you guys for joining us. My name is Rob. This is my mom, Karen, and we are your hosts over at Books, Banter, and Beyond. Today's book is actually one of my favorites. As you know, I'm a classical literature nerd by trade. And of course, this book was way, way, way back, previous to, all the other iterations that we got, by a man who you might know, Lewis Carroll. So the original title, Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, which is what it's actually called,
Right.
follows the titular character as she tumbles into a rabbit hole into what is probably the weirdest pipe dream, whatever you want to call it, ever. Everything from talking cats to time-obsessed rabbits, and of course, that really crazy lady who just apparently wants to behead everybody because that's her deal. But did you guys know that Lewis Carroll, as a individual, was a mathematician, and one of his favorite things was puzzles? So we're going to talk a little about that. Just a quick reference, his real name is Charles Dodgson, but he decided Lewis Carroll sounded more of a whimsical name, so that's what he went by. But yeah, he was a mathematician by trade, but he also was an observer of human nature and the absurdities of life. And obviously, you can't get more absurd than, Wonderland, right?
Right.
So throughout the entire journey, she meets these various characters who do kind of signify people that maybe she knew. If you guys have read the book, you'll understand that everything kind of is a what do you call it? It's a version of something that she knows.
Right. Sort of like Wizard of Oz. All the
Exactly. Yeah.
Right?
So while Dorothy's going through all of these magical people, they're actually kind of visualizations of real, people and things. So paradoxes abound, and statements like "curiouser and curiouser" encapsulate the absurd logic. It's evident in how she has to navigate through physical mazes, but also through kind of the puzzles that characters like the Cheshire Cat tell her in order for her to basically wander through. It's not just a children's tale here, right?
Well, it's not. I mean, I don't. We look at our notes before we do this, and it occurs to me that this adventure that she's going through, and there have been studies, and there have been all sorts of people talking about this. That this was a drug-induced thing. That this was an LSD. I don't know if you know that. That literally.
I think I remember via Dad telling me something.
Right.
About it, yeah.
This is actually Lewis Carroll or Charles Dodgson's story about taking a drug trip, basically. And if you think about it in those terms, hallucinating and, seeing cats and seeing hats and seeing queens cutting off your head, paranoia, all that stuff, it's fascinating to me. I don't know anything about Lewis Carroll. I don't know what his background is. I don't know if he had a drug problem. Do you know anything about this guy? I mean, other than
So in terms of that, I have heard little bits of the drug-induced adventures, we can call it politely. But as far as him as an individual, as mentioned, he was into the sciences. He studied a lot of math and science and physics and stuff like that. It's interesting to talk about because I know a lot of my favorite authors did struggle with alcoholism and drugs, i.e., people like Edgar Allan Poe, Ernest Hemingway. I think even people like Stephen King have admitted that he dealt with taking things. So it wouldn't be beyond logic to think that that might have been part of it. However, from what I've read, at least, it's more, I think, of a it's kind of like the Magic Eye books, or actually, I don't know if you remember the guy Graham Base. He wrote The 11th Hour. It was a kid's book. It was a giant picture book. But in that picture book, it was a mystery you had to solve. And you had to find clues in the pictures to solve the puzzle. So I think that's kind of what it is here. I feel like Carroll was big on trying to get people to maybe learn
Mm-hmm.
without realizing they were learning, kind of like how, how teachers always say, oh, we're gonna study this, you're not going to think you're actually studying. Never worked that way, but
Right.
we're going to pretend like,
Right.
this is an adventure instead. But it's an interesting idea you brought up, because I think there might be a little of both. What really interests me is that you can use it in many ways. So you can use it as a book, you can use it as a study in medicine, but you can also use it as kind of the what does life mean? And you know me well. I'm
Right.
the kind of person that
So,
goes,
do you think in some strange way that Wonderland is reflecting philosophical and psychological themes about
oh,
identity?
by far. I mean, excuse me. If you just go down by character each one, like you said, can have a personality type to something real. So whether it is an acid trip, whether it is a, what is the meaning of life type of deal.
Right.
Alice meets all of these characters, and and I think even in the various iterations, when she does come back home, there's kind of that growth. We talked about the alchemist, where he went on that
Right.
journey and he kind of became a new person. When she returns from Wonderland, however
Right. Right.
she returns a different individual. She may be physically the same person. She may have not aged very much, but she definitely grew a
With
uh,
knowing, she came back with knowing.
exactly. She
Right.
she got something out of it that she didn't have prior.
Right. Well, it's funny because I really think of Alice in Wonderland, not Adventures, and we think of it as truly just a children's book, right? But it could be really scary children's book.
No, it is, and I think, and that's one reason why classics to me are so amazing, because of that kind of weird, not so positive message.
Mhm.
Like I always go back to like Grimm's fairy tales, for instance. A lot of these fairy tales that we've read, they're always happy endings. But if you read the real story, they're not so happy endings. And this is kind of the same thing here. It's not so much that Alice ends up with a bad fate, but this is much more philosophical, kind of like, let's say, Aristotle or Pluto, if you're studying those guys.
Mhm.
That's kind of more what this is.
Right.
And whether it's unfortunate or fortunate, depending on who you think, I'm not a fan of how, somebody like Disney kind of made it too happy.
Right.
I kind of prefer the original meaning.
Really, this questioning the idea of reality. What is real and what is not
Yes.
real, right? Is she in a dream? Is she on an acid trip? Is she really going down the rabbit hole? I mean, we use that as an expression, right? All the time. Let's go down the rabbit hole.
Well,
Or
no,
I
when,
went,
when you tell me, you ask me about my deep diving, that's what it is. When
yeah,
somebody on YouTube or somebody on the internet goes, oh, we're going to go down the rabbit hole, you learn about things
right,
that either may not be what you thought, or
right,
you might learn about parts of things that you thought were one sided, and then you realize, oh, there's 15 different aspects of this that you never were taught, because maybe they weren't as mainstream,
right.
maybe common. So I love the fact that this book I mean, as we're talking about it, it's making us deep
I
dive.
want to go read it again. I'm actually going to go read it. I mean, that's now I want to read it. I'm. It's I think this is really fascinating. In terms of Alice and her
Yes.
adventures, is this the only? Can you think of any other books that kind of cross the boundary of being reality and fantasy all in one?
Um, I mean, yes. Names avoid me now, but I
Like
know
James
there's
and the Giant Peach, would that be like the same kind of thing? What's real? What's not real? He's in a peach. He's
I mean, yeah, theoretically, because I think what you're supposed to believe is that character A goes on this crazy adventure, right?
right,
But what you kind of then don't think about is, while you're there, did character A actually leave? Are they sleeping?
right,
Because like you said, obviously jumping into a giant piece of fruit, that's not a thing, and there's the talking animals, all this stuff. So, I mean, maybe it is. I don't know. I've never done it, but, but that is true. For me, I think kind of more, maybe historically, like Dante's Inferno, for instance, where he
right,
goes through the layers of heaven and hell, and he
right,
meets real life figures, but he's meeting them in areas of fantasy. So yeah, there's plenty of that. What's actually going on, and
right.
what are you supposed to buy?
Right. I
You
mean,
know.
You actually wrote here, Carroll invites readers of all ages to embrace the wonder of imagination and to ponder the deeper mysteries maybe that are underneath the surface. And I think we should all do that on an everyday, right?
Yeah, I mean, and the one guy that always comes back to me for mysteries is our friend Arthur C. Clarke with the 2001. If anybody's going to tell you to think about things and to actually think before you act, it's somebody like that too. So all of these authors, whether it's Carroll, whether it's Clarke, whether it's Dante, whether it's what's his name,
Raoul.
Roald Dahl, who
Roald
did, all their what they're doing is they're trying to get you to think. So whether it's silly fantasy, whether it's science fiction, whether it's just a ridiculous trip through history, what they want to do is they want you to not only enjoy, they want you to sit back and go, okay, you read my book, you saw what I said. What do you think? What really is
Right.
going
So
on
that's the
here?
question, right, for our audience, guys. What do you think? I
Yeah.
mean, how if you've read Alice in the Adventures of Wonderland, if you've done that, let us know. I mean, do you read these books and you say, "Oh, this is pure fantasy," or "Oh my God, this girl is on a drug trip," or "Oh my, what is this?" I'm curious. I'm sure you're curious too, Rob. What our audience thinks about books just like this, and you can find books just like this at the Next Chapter Bookstore.shop. Go check it out. You've got all sorts of gently used books, which
Hmm.
I love. We talked about used books versus new books the other day. All sorts of gently used books where you can give it a new life and put this book on your shelf. Go check it out. There's comic books. And when you go there, by the way, there's categories. The easiest way to search your site, Rob, I know, is to just check the categories. Are you interested in science
Yeah.
fiction? Let's see what the books are that are in the bookstore right now. Um,
Hmm.
it's This is a great story. I think I'm going to go out now, and I think I'll go to the Libby app and
Oh, there you
check
go.
it out. There you go. If you haven't checked out the Libby app, it's free. It's connected to your public library. Very cool. You can get books all the time. Always fun, Rob. Great conversation.
Yep.
And thank you for joining us, everyone. We'll see you next time on Books Banter and beyond. Goodbye, everyone.